Welcome to Empower Hour. Let's get growing. Good morning, everybody. Happy Friday. So good to be here. Full disclaimer, I am exhausted. It doesn't happen that much. I went out singing and dancing the other night. It was like from 6:30 p.m. to 10 p.m. and just put in full effort this week on so many amazing, beautiful things. So I feel grateful. I love Friday mornings, as you know. I've got my Colorado hat on and my New York mug, and I have a friend presenting today. But, you know, it's funny how things work out. So we're doing today a podcast as a platform, and I started my podcast it's a little over a year ago, and it's been an amazing, very powerful tool for me. But in the last few months, I started really leaning more on guests, and that's a great thing too. But I pulled away from doing my solo podcasts a lot, and then the message that the universe has been sending me lately, which is really, when I woke up this morning to all the politics, and I see a lot of people in the business world really like screaming and yelling, like, if you don't vote this way, your business is going to crumble and this is going to happen. And just got me thinking to this message that has been broadcasting in my head from the universe so loud lately. And the message has just been that the way to build, I just realized Parker's back there. Hey, Parker. The way to build my business, and I believe anybody who's got a service-oriented business, you know what? I think almost any business at this point, people are doing business, shopping with people that they respect, love, and trust. I'm going to go that far and say that. And so using your voice is one of the most powerful tools you can use to build your business. So I have a little practice that I do in the mornings. I, since a little girl, receive messages from the universe, from God, whatever it is that you want to call it. And so I've been working on strengthening hearing these messages, because they've only really come to me in like extreme emergency situations. And I want to cultivate that to have those messages clearer to me on a regular basis. So I want to read to you really quick what came to me this morning. The universe wants me to know that my voice is the most powerful tool that I have. I need to clear out the mess, the wreckage, the baggage, the fear, and transcend, rise up, and know that I am fully loved and supported. Using my voice with the certainty, love, and gratitude, and to shine the light that has been dormant in me for so long, and using it as a beacon to guide others towards that light is my most important task. I must slow down, stop the marketing. I don't think they mean totally stop, and speak my truth. And so I know this for a fact. When I can speak my voice with the certainty, that is where things really start to happen. That's where I am at in my truest form of my power. And I believe this to be true of all businesses. My blog and my podcasts have been my foundation of my coaching business, which is still a new business. But the difference between writing the words and then being able to speak those words and communicate that and get that out to your, not just your audience, but to your reach, right? Because I know sometimes we're on social media, we're on Instagram, we're on Facebook, we go live, we do this, and we feel like my audience isn't engaging. They're not liking, they're not sharing, they're not commenting. And so, yeah, the algorithms have changed. But you guys, you know what? When I woke up and saw these certain people talking about, like, if you don't vote this way, the whole world's going to crumble and your business is going to crumble. And I'm not putting down anybody's opinions, but as a business owner, as an entrepreneur, I can tell you that no matter what, I will thrive. And I know for a fact that by going within and using my voice, it's only going to help that certainty in growing my business. And there's no better way to do that than through podcasting. So I launched my podcast, have no idea what I'm doing. So I know that I'm probably going to learn a whole bunch today from Mitzi. And besides that, she's an amazing, amazing human being. So let me introduce her. And I hope that helped you. And before actually, and I also want to make sure that I'm clear that in order to be able to use your voice with certainty, you have to be speaking on topics that you really know in your soul. And in order to be able to do that, you need to create the time and space, which is why that message told me to slow down. Stop worrying about content. Start worrying about what I'm actually saying and how I'm saying it and who I am as I'm doing it more than. So with that, you need the time and space to be able to make sure that when you are speaking, you're speaking with ownership and authority. And that is going to build your tribe. That is going to build your community. That is what's going to make people decide they want to do business with you. Maybe not the tool for everybody, but I do believe it is the tool for many. So without further ado, my new friend, an instant friend. I love instant friends, people that you meet and then within minutes, yeah, we're friends. We always have been. Always have been. And that's my friend Mitzi Campbell. She is a podcaster her podcast is called Blessings, which is Blessons. Absolutely beautiful. I've been a guest. It was an amazing conversation. She's a mentor, she's a speaker, and a fellow light worker. And my friend,
Hey, Jen. All right. There's no one I'd rather get up early on a Friday morning for than you.
I know everybody's like, why?
I would be up anyway, obviously. This is so great. So great. I love that you're doing this Empower Hour on Friday mornings, because Friday is this day where, we're kind of winding down from the week, and it's a good time for us to tap back into like inspiration and empowerment in that way, that you're moving into the weekend. We think about the weekend as a time to kind of like recharge. So why shouldn't we get ourselves prepared to have extra energy and an extra level of like an extra boost before the weekend? Not
Yeah.
just Mondays, man. Friday's the day to do that.
Yeah,
'Cause,
I told you.
you know,
I do quiet work on the weekend, and that's when all the messages that have come through to me on the week through the week, right? We all have that. It's like these themes happen.
yeah,
And then you have that these, end the week with the powerful thoughts so that you have that space to reflect.
that's
Yeah.
right. That's right. Because when in the stillness is when you receive that guidance, that supreme guidance and those messages. I love that you talked about getting that message.
Yeah. Yeah, it's been using my voice has sort of been the theme the entire week. And poor Jose, my my everything, my right hand is going to be like, oh no, this means she's changing things.
Well, we always change. I mean, everything changes all the time. Uh, just thinking about this concept the other day, and it's really beautiful to embrace that and just
Mhm.
watch and notice how you're changing. You know, people will say to you, "Oh, well, you've changed." And I always love
Thank
that
you.
meme of the butterfly, like, "Yeah, of course I've changed.
Yes.
We're supposed to."
And that's the thing. I think people are afraid a little bit to use their voice because they're like, well, what if I say this with such conviction? And then, but that's evolution, right? And then, a month from now, I learn something or experience something that's different. Okay, great. That is evolution, and these are just, our voice is not to the be all end all. It's just, being able to show up in our wholeness and be truly authentic is what people are attracted to right now. It's what everybody is fighting over and clamoring over is attention. And so I feel like using your voice is the right kind of attention rather than, I saw something yesterday. It was an ad for some kind of class where you learn how to hijack celebrity. Good morning.
Good
you
morning,
you,
Rebecca.
you learn how to hijack celebrity headlines, right, and use them to gain momentum. And while, look, that's great. I mean, I'm not knocking it, but I just don't, that for me, that's not the way that I want to build my business. And and I think that if you have a whole team that can do things like that for you while you are focused on being your true authentic and bringing your true purpose through, then great, right? But if that's going to be distracting you from going within and really empowering yourself to be the best version of yourself in whatever role that you are as a business leader and entrepreneur, then I say, heck no, 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 no. Spend the time going within, finding your voice and being able to shine that light. That's my take.
Hmm.
What say you, Mitzi?
I agree with you completely. I think when you get tangled up in those kinds of shenanigans, it feels like a game. Like, okay, what
Mhm.
kind of strategy do I need? What kind of game do I need to play? I definitely am repelled by that, but at the same time, when you jump into the world of entrepreneurship and podcasting and all of that, there is some level of having to participate in that world in some way, but it does have to feel authentic to you.
Yeah.
So, I agree, and I
Yeah.
love what you said about having your voice shine because, yes, there will be people who at some point, maybe they'll say, "Oh, I didn't know she felt that way, and maybe I don't resonate with her anymore," but then at the same time, there'll be other people who will find that and say, "Wow, I've been waiting for somebody to say those words. I totally resonate with that." So and that's always shifting, and we have to let it shift, like, that's part of the flow of life, you know?
Yeah.
It's like the ocean when it's moving and it's constantly churning and picking up different things on the ground there's shells and seaweed and pebbles and they're always different. They're shifting but yet they're still a part of that big body of water, that big ocean. And so we have to kind of think of ourselves that way. Just let it kind of flow and listen to that inner guidance the way you do. How do you tap into that so strongly?
Well, listen, because I had this huge realization in the last 2 years when my whole world blew up that I was operating. I'm a big people pleaser. I just didn't understand this and didn't know this. So I really spent the bulk of my life not in authenticity. When you are designing your life around making sure everybody thinks you're great. Okay. Now, look, I had a lot of shame, a lot of things that just weren't dealt with. And I have no regrets. I had, my daughter under the worst of circumstances and did what I had to do to get to where I was. But now that, once you awaken, you're awake.
Yep.
So and then you keep becoming more and more awake. You think,
Right.
oh, yeah, no, like sometimes you're so awake, it's blinding.
Yeah.
And that's what happened to me recently. I started becoming blinded in a good way and realizing that that's freedom. When you can speak your voice and not be afraid of any consequences or who you may hurt. And that's not, speak. And that's what I love the message said, with gratitude, with love.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, and and it's also been screaming so much like to get out of judgment. And I mean, I really have spent a lot of years being so judgmental. And so that's what happens is when you are judgmental and you're kind of like, even when you start to get some sort of sense of enlightenment or awakening or spiritual, whatever you want to call it, you start like looking at other people as if they're not. And judgment exists in so
Yeah.
many different forms.
Yeah.
And so we're really reflecting that back on ourselves because we're doing it to people. And so we're afraid to go out there and use our powerful voice because we're afraid that's going to come back at us and the same thing is going to happen. If that makes sense to you. That's shadow work right there, right? Realizing that those things that you fear or this are really because that's what you're doing.
That's right.
And that's freedom.
It is.
Right
It's freedom. And we still, like, you always have that inner freedom. Even under the most oppressive circumstances, people have that inner freedom. I think Nelson Mandela talked about that a lot when he was imprisoned, and that whole idea of like the mindset, keeping your mind and realizing that you have that freedom of mind because you do. And for some people in the world, that's all they have. And it's interesting to think about that. The way that you were talking about, authenticity and using your voice. This is such an interesting concept because when we think about being our authentic selves, there are many different facets to that. And, when we open up to a world where we have a choice about judgment, we have to remember that we also have that choice when it comes to judging ourselves.
Yes.
So interesting to think about that. And, there are lots of things that about you that are authentic, and you can be authentically, sitting around in your pajamas in the morning. And you can also be the authentic person who wants to look good and, go out and get dressed up, put on your lipstick, whatever. It's not like you're putting on a mask. Those are the different
No,
facets of you.
we're both.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we're
We're
both. We're both and
everything.
we're everything all at once.
We're everything. And I love that. I just came back from Colorado
I love
and
the hat.
thank you. I love it too. My sister showed up with this hat and we didn't grow up together. So it's like we have a really close relationship. But if it was my brother who I grew up with, I would have stole the hat. So I couldn't steal my sister's hat. So I had to go find it and I did. So I was like, yes.
That's
But
awesome.
but yeah, I love that because I've always been like a walking contradiction in so many ways. And because I love everything. That's just who
Yeah.
I am. Like I don't even have a favorite color. I don't have a favorite music genre. Not because I don't know who I am, because I just love everything. It's just who I am. I love new experiences. I love people at the highest level. And you'll soon see me sitting in the city, sitting down, talking to homeless people. I have no problem just pulling up right next to them on their milk crate. And that's just who I am. And I'm not the only one. We're all that way. And I think we put ourselves in cages. And so my experiences that I've been through are a blessing in so many ways because I can embrace all those aspects of myself. And so I encourage people, and I truly believe podcasting is one of the ways that you can go find out about everything in the world that you want to. Get your curiosity. Yeah. Yeah, because the more you learn about yourself, because we're all the same. Like we're all the same. And so you find aspects of yourself in everything.
Right. And you could even make the argument that everything you do is for the self. It's because you need it in some way. Even people who like us who really believe strongly in helping people to heal and grow and reach their potential and things like that. That's also a judgment. That was kind of pointed out to me recently. It's very interesting because people who even have the intention to help, we're judging
Yeah.
that other people need help. And then that reflects back to us in the way that, well, what is it about me that needs help? What is it about me that feels like I need help? And it opens a whole can of worms. Like you said, once you become awake to the existential philosophical roots of like everything,
Mm-hmm.
you can never put that toothpaste back in the tube. And then you go through the world with this curiosity. And I think that's one of the reasons why people do end up starting a podcast, because it's feeding something in you. People do it. I think most people do it because they have a need to speak. They have a need to help. They have a need to affect the world in a positive way. And why is that? Probably comes back to some need. But at the same time, it adds a great benefit to the world.
Agreed. I just had a vision. Um, David Meltzer talks about, thanks, Brian. So good to see you. Do you know Brian Bogart? I
No.
met him through David Meltzer. That's right. I know you more through Craig. I associate Craig and David like the same people for some reason. So David
I
talks
know. I love
about,
that. I have to get into that world too. If you're in the Melter world, make sure you follow me and send me a message so I know who you are.
so David talks about you have one hand up asking for help and you have one hand down, giving help, pulling people up as people are pulling you up. But this chain, in my opinion, is round. So there is nobody at the top and there is nobody at the bottom. That's an illusion. But we are connecting to one another and pulling each other up and lifting each other up. And so while I am helping lifting somebody else up, it's helping me. I'm becoming the best version of myself as I am helping people align with their truth in their lives. And people are doing the same, but it's not this, David. Okay, Mr. Meltzer. No, I'm just kidding. It is, but it's also an illusion because it's a circle that doesn't break. And so at some point, even the person at the top has somebody pulling them. Isn't that? Yeah, I
It's
love that.
infinite. It's infinite,
Yeah,
but
it's
it's also, I've heard it described in Kabbalah as that whatever you're reaching for is reaching for you. So like if you're reaching toward the divine light, that is also reaching toward you, for example. Like it's
yes.
and that's very that's such an interesting way of looking at it. But the idea of, you know, helping others, bringing value to the world because it feeds us. And that's how we affect the world. We don't affect the world by doing our work helping others per se. We affect the world by changing ourselves and then helping others to see, oh, that's what it looks like when you're able to elevate. I'm going to be a part of that.
And
And
who you're becoming in the process.
that's right.
So
Yep.
I've been getting into human design.
Oh, cool.
Well, and so, but I like when I read my profile, it was like someone took a spear and went through my heart, and I'm gonna end up crying. I'm gonna try not to, but my profile, we fall from grace. We fall from grace. It's not something you can prevent. You're not gonna, and this has happened to me like 3 major times in my life. It is heartbreaking. It is all the things that we don't want or we think we don't want. But because, I had this big business blow up a couple of years ago, everybody in my real estate industry was a witness to it all. Rumors, very damaging to my reputation. But that is what makes what I'm doing now even more impactful because they're viewing a transformation, or so they think. It doesn't matter, right? Or yeah, I mean, no matter what, there's been an amazing, beautiful transformation since that happened. But having the world witness as you expand is the best thing we can do for the world. And
That's
that's
right. 'Cause it shows others too, because listen, everybody has their stuff. Everybody has a moment of an experience they wish hadn't happened in their life. Whether it's because of something you do or something somebody else does, or, it doesn't matter. These experiences are given to us as a gift. They're a gift because those of us who go through difficult things are able to like tap into this amazing transformational energy that other people who don't go through difficult experiences don't get. That's
right.
what those things are for. And it's just a way of getting closer to, I just getting closer to God, getting closer to yourself. And going through those things is something that should be celebrated. And
Yes.
and even though it could be humiliating, it could be shameful, or it could be blame, there could be all kinds of, negative emotions. But those are a part of the human experience.
Thank God this
Yeah, we're
time
lucky.
around, I was prepared. I had been I had a spiritual practice for like the last 20 years, but I never fully embodied. And in the last 5 years, like pandemic was really, really, really good for me. And I really came into full embodiment of the practice, taking it off the mat, taking it off the cushion, and bringing it out into my world and into my life. And so when it happened this time, I was able to pivot. And I also, even though it's not something supposedly, right, I can prevent, I understand its purpose and it aligns with who I am and what my mission is. So it's okay.
Yeah.
And it's all good.
Coming
So
out of the spiritual closet, I've heard it.
yes, and that was it. I was living in that duality, and it's like hiding it in a sense because for so much of my life being this, spiritual being, the spiritual light was such I don't know if juxtaposition is the right word, but opposite of what my persona was. And so now that I can bring them, I mean, listen, I went to karaoke Thursday night. I don't drink anymore. I literally well, I mean, I had a few of my friends helping, no doubt, but we walked into the room, we brought the energy, and we had people dancing, singing, and so my persona is still there. That is
Yeah,
still me.
that's right.
But I also like to sit and read for days on end and be alone and be in quiet and hang out with Parker and that's who I am. And it's just freedom to be able
Yeah,
to bring it all in.
yeah,
So
to
you
embrace
and I,
those.
go
You
ahead.
I just wanna say one thing. You
Yeah,
said earlier that you felt like you said the word contradiction, and I just want to encourage you to let go of that judgment of yourself as a negative because
I have.
it's
Yeah,
yeah, it's not like a contradiction. It's embracing that these are all that parts of you are opposites, and that's, like, normal. Like,
exactly.
I mean, I've had to deal with that as well. There are parts of me that and there are parts of us from from our lives and our experiences in the past that we would love to let go of, but we have to keep them around. Like, they're like these friends that can teach us, and
Agreed.
yeah,
And
that works.
I have let go of I embrace the contradiction. I
Yes.
love that now. I love
Yes.
because that was such a good outlet, except my girlfriend, we're supposed to go out tonight. And I'm like, I don't think I can do
I'm
it.
with you. I don't do
I'm
that. I
literally,
really don't do that either
I have
anymore.
a sore throat. I'm telling her, and she's going to text me in a little while going, no, we're going out. But at least it's to a nice, quiet jazz club.
Oh, that's fun.
So you and I could talk forever and I could hijack, but I know you had things to come here and tell us. So I'm going
Sure.
to shut up.
Okay. Well, I know you wanted to talk about podcasting,
Mhm.
and, and how that works as a platform. So, it's very interesting because I think, many people gosh, so many of the people that I know that have gone into podcasting, these are people who opened that door because they felt a calling. And I feel like it's that way for every single person who I've met who's started a podcast, even big people. I met Rich Roll at an event, and I spoke to him one on one for like 20 minutes. And basically, it's the same thing. These are people who whether it's Joe Schmo in his podcast or someone big like that, these are people who all have something important to contribute or feel that they need to say something to the world. And
Right.
so that that's going to be the basis of your, quote, platform of business, whatever that business is going to be. And most of the time, people who are podcasting are wanting to be in the world of personal development. So it's a great place to have that kind of a platform. There's
Yeah.
also a lot of people using their podcasts for their work in things like psychology or wellness or fitness. So, anything, gosh, I think it could really match up with just about anything you want to do. So, the idea of podcasting as a platform, um, I think, is a solid foundation for anything. But I would just kind of caution people that it's not going to be your only thing. So you can't think you're gonna start a podcast and you're suddenly gonna get sponsorships and make all this money and you're gonna be able to just be a podcaster. I think that's kind of a little bit of a illusion, that maybe some people think that's gonna happen, and it really is a part of a larger whole. So that's kind of the first thing I would say about it. What do you think about that?
No, I agree wholeheartedly. And when I started my podcast, it really was a tool to find my authentic voice. And
Mhm.
for my business model, what I did was I would find a topic that I wanted to respond to.
Mm.
Because that's really what it is, right? The topics all exist, and then we want to respond. We want to give our take. We want to, study, learn it, and then be able to talk about it from our perspective. And so, and I didn't have I didn't have formal education, right? I dropped out basically in 8th grade, and so I used it as an opportunity to learn. So I would learn something, write about it, and then speak about it. And it helped me gain like some mastery on the topics that I was doing.
Mhm.
So I don't know if that answered your question,
Yeah.
but
And
yeah,
that's one way. So that when if you're out there and you're thinking about starting a podcast, that's one way of doing it. You can have a solo podcast where you talk about the things that are important to you, and it can be a
right.
variety of different things, or it could be things that are all in one. I mean, it's really anything goes. There really are not any
Yeah.
rules.
And
But
then
the
I
other
went into
way,
guests, and then
yeah.
I went into
And
guests, and
then
now I'm going
exactly.
back to solo, and I'm going to have both.
And you can do both, and that's what I do. I have both. I started out with guests. I knew that I wanted to talk to people. When I first started, my podcast was really centered around speaking to other people about their life stories and their life experiences. And as it evolved, because I began to get um, guests that had a kind of a bigger platform on my show, and they didn't want to tell their whole story necessarily because they may have already told it a million times, or they wanted to talk more specifically about their work. So then it kind of migrated into that, where I am focusing in on the specific things, the lessons and blessings of life that pertain to all the guests. And then I take things that either come as tangents from those conversations, or things like I observe in the world, or things I think people are asking me questions about, to talk about in a shorter solo episode. So I end up doing twice a week now, 2 episodes a week.
Wow.
So yeah, and it's a really interesting way of continuing the conversation and getting people involved in talking about things that are important in life. So that's another big, I think, benefit to the podcasting world, is getting these conversations going, keeping these conversations going, you know?
Agree. Yeah, absolutely. And then, you're in whatever industry you're in, you can decide, but I can also, you can decide what those conversations are and should be. But, aligning yourself as an industry leader, there's no easier way to do that either than through podcasts, because you can
Yep.
take the controversial topics, and not, maybe you don't want to go too controversial either, but you can have, you have your voice instead of going on the internet and arguing with people and going into your industry pages and screaming, yelling, ranting, and raving, right? Gather your thoughts, whatever's happening in your industry, and come out and speak on it. And you
Mhm.
know what, so many times I have, because I have been using of my voice, but it just, this is a great story. You ready for this? So Roger Ailes, do you know who Roger Ailes is?
Yes.
Okay. So Roger Ailes moved to Maya County, Putnam County, and bought a little local newspaper. And it was like this huge controversy, um, where in the town that he lives in is very democratic, and da, da, da. So it was whatever. So, but he was here, and I got into a little thing with him, like actual little brawl. And he at the end of it, like we ended up aligning ourselves, and he gave me an article in his newspaper, and I wrote for his newspaper for about 10 years. Even after he sold it, I became very good friends with the new owner editor, Doug Cunningham, who's completely opposite of how Roger Ailes was. But so I used that platform to talk about issues in my community and in my county, and I wrote about some really controversial things. And a lot of times I would write about it and I was wrong, and I would be able to then go back and be like, you know what, but it doesn't matter that I was wrong. First of all, because I'm able to say, oh wow, I didn't think of that, and that changes my perspective, and then But what's happening in that process? I'm growing.
Yeah, learning. And that's why podcasting, it's like a living, it's a living entity. And it evolves and grows just like we do. And with us as the host of the podcast, it can evolve and grow. And I love the idea too of bringing in, a lot of times I will bring in research if I'm talking about something specific. A lot of times I'll talk about different business practices or healing tools or personal growth tools. And I'll bring in research because you want to, I have a background in academia. So I'm all about, the research. And so bringing that into the conversation too is another great aspect of podcasting, because you can prepare. You can either be off the cuff or you can prepare. And, I usually have, just as a practical tip, when you're talking about using your computer screen as a medium, you can have things up on your screen to help you. So I usually have a document, I'll have notes, and then I'll have whatever I'm using to record. For me, it's Zoom, in the center. So it's a really, um, it lends itself very well to bringing in your thoughts, using research, being able to tap into the internet as well as you're there. It's dynamic. It's just it's a great, platform for all that. So that's been another aspect. And also another really great benefit of podcasting is the connections that you make.
Yeah.
And that's another thing that's important if you're building a business, because your business is going to extend well beyond the podcast. So making connections with either guests, people you're bringing onto a team to help you with the show, or just other podcasters, other people in that world.
Yeah.
I know you and I are both in business coaching groups, and in those types of groups, those types of memberships, you will meet a lot of other people who are also podcasting and doing other things. And it is a wealth of information, and just a depth in a network of life that enhances you in your personal and professional development. So it's that as well.
So true. We throw out the word collaboration so often, and without giving a good definition of it, right? And so using your podcast is the easiest way to collaborate with people that you want to collaborate with. And it's like it's providing value, because no matter, this is where you can get people that you think are unreachable.
Mhm.
With enough persistence, you can probably get them onto your podcast, because it's still valuable. It's real estate, like on the internet, right? And so
Yeah.
it's content that, as long as you give them the recording or that they can access it, um, it's 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 valuable to everybody, and it's the easiest way to collaborate. And I remember thinking so many times, like, well, how do I collaborate with that person or that person? And then it just opened up that access.
That's right. And
So
you
much
just have to put
easier.
it out there. You don't have you cannot be afraid of making a connection and asking someone to step into your world with you.
Yeah, agreed. Agreed. I love it. So how does someone get started?
Well, it's pretty simple. You just have to start doing it. You do not need any fancy equipment. You do not need a fancy studio, but you do need to intentionally make space to record and decide on what you want to say. So, when I first started, I did take a class to learn a little bit more about it. And in that class, I learned a little bit about equipment and things that you do need. You need a basic microphone and camera, which comes on your laptop if you are just using your laptop. And that is a fine way to start. You do learn after you get started that sound quality is enhanced by having a microphone. And it doesn't have to be a fancy microphone, but there's a whole variety of different microphones you can use. I do use an external microphone, but for the first whole year, I did not have a fancy microphone. I think I used a microphone that I got on Amazon, one of the little blues, and it was like $50. Now I've upgraded to a different microphone. I use the Shure microphone now, and it does make a difference, but it's not necessary. And also a set of headphones. Now I will often just pop in my Apple headphones that I got with my computer, and those work just fine. But I also have a set of over-ear headphones that I use. And again, it help and enhance the quality? Yes, of course it does. But it's also not necessary. You can
Right.
just get started. So you also have to get used to recording and hearing the sound of your own voice. I know that sounds silly, but getting used to hearing your voice and getting used to putting yourself out there as a quote host, and then you become a brand. It's like a whole different part of your identity. And like we were talking about earlier, it's another, you know, another facet of you that's maybe the opposite of the part of you that does something in a different part of your life. So maybe you're an introvert and
Right.
you're going to be putting yourself out there as a podcaster where you're going to be perceived as an extrovert.
Right.
And so it's got all of that. That is really, I think those are the three biggest things to start. Just knowing you need to record with a microphone and a camera, and having organized thoughts, something to say. Nobody really wants to hear rambling. I mean, you have to have some guided, place where you're going. It doesn't have to be scripted, but it does have to have some framework around it. And the idea of getting used to that new part of your identity, that personal aspect of it.
Yes.
Those are the biggest, I think, things to get started for me.
I just want to add to that. I just took a really great class with Melanie Ann Layer. I don't know if you know who
Oh,
she is.
yes, I do.
Okay, so she did something called Broadcast, the Voice of a New Era. And the whole class was about the difference between talking and speaking. And you
Oh,
really want to try to reserve when you're going public, even in this circumstance where it can it's perceived that you and I are just talking and bantering, but I know for a fact, because I know you and I know myself, that we are speaking. We're speaking with authority from things that
yeah.
matter to us. And that's the difference, really, right? So it's like, don't, and then if you're trying to tackle topics that you kind of don't really know, your voice is going to change and you're going to come off as not as confident. And so it's okay, even if you talk about the same topic from 20 different angles until you're ready to go into another topic. I mean, that's why podcasts have themes, right? Like mine's Soulful Prosperity. That's an easy topic for me to talk about. And it's like when my guests start to go in a different direction, I can bring them back to
Yes.
Soulful Prosperity. So yeah, I agree with everything you said wholeheartedly.
Yes, and also, there are people who want to speak because they're angry about something or they're complaining about something. I would caution you against just ranting and raving about things that you're upset about in the world. I think that when you come from a place that is heart-centered and, um, from a place of love, as opposed to from a place of fear or anger, you're going to end up connecting more with people who are going to resonate and help that elevation process, that ascension process happen, as opposed to, getting online and just ranting and raving and then bringing the vibe down. So it's very important to think about your tone, your style, your vibe when you go into it. And there are ways of addressing concerns about the world in a positive
Yeah.
way.
And being open to other opinions, other perspectives. One thing I've learned at the ripe age of 53 is that two people can have completely opposite opinions and both be right. Whoa.
Yes. That's right. Well, yes, exactly.
Whoa.
And that's a great question to ask yourself. What if the other person is right? What if the other person is right? And what does that mean? But
Yeah.
you said something earlier, which I thought was a really interesting thing because yes, we're getting into political season. We've got an election coming up, and yeah, it's difficult. I do not look at any news or anything when I first wake up in the morning. It's like the last thing
Yeah.
I want to see. But Yeah, it's in your face, no matter what, it is there, and what you said was that it doesn't matter what happens because I'm going to thrive anyway, and so when
Yeah.
you have that certainty of knowing that you can thrive in any environment, um, I think that's a really great mindset to take on, and I try to embody that as well, and my mind always goes to like, well, there are definitely people in the world who don't have the ability to thrive because their circumstances. Like I think of women who might be living in a place like Afghanistan or something like that, and how difficult it would be for them to thrive in the same way that we thrive. But they
That's it.
do
In
they
the
do
same
find
way,
it, right? They find it, and so we have to think about that. It's always relative. So you can thrive, and it's all about your mindset. It's all in the mind.
yeah, yeah, no doubt. I mean, I have thrived under like some really horrific
You have.
circumstances myself, um, and I didn't have a perspective of me not thriving until I leveled up, and then was like, "Ooh,
Mhm,
wow," like I went through that. I did
mhm.
that. I That's one of the gifts, and it's not narcissistic or conceited to say that. I don't know why I was given that gift, but now I understand. No, I'm sorry. I didn't always know. Now I understand that it's a gift that I have to share and help other people to be able to tap into that ability to be able to thrive under any circumstance,
Mhm,
any circumstance.
mhm.
And so, but you're right, no matter what. And that's why people like, I don't know. I don't even, can't even think of some women in that circumstances. But yeah, like a Helen Keller, right? Or
Mhm. Yeah,
there's many
mhm. Or,
we hear a lot
Malala,
more about the
think of
men.
Malala. You know who Malala, I
No.
don't remember her last name, but she's from Afghanistan, and she was actually shot in the face by the Taliban for going to school, for
Yeah,
trying
yeah,
to go to school.
yeah. I don't know. Yeah,
And she lives in the United States now, and she speaks all about this. But,
yeah,
um thriving is possible in whatever is your relative way, and that's what, whenever I get caught up in the weeds, because that's what, the opposite forces, call them evil forces, whatever, they want you to get caught up in those weeds and get worried and get into fear and get into stress and uh
yeah,
suffering,
yeah.
and we don't need to be there,
Um,
because we can set ourselves up to thrive, and everything is a choice.
yeah,
Everything is a choice. But you also said something I want to touch on with podcasting is, the idea of having guests on your show who may not agree with you. And I've had many guests. You wouldn't really know necessarily that I didn't agree with them. I'm never disrespectful to my guests, and I
mhm,
shape the conversation in such a way that it's um it's exploring, and
mhm,
experiencing, rather than me saying, "Oh, well, pushing back." I don't really do that as much, because I feel like I want people to be able to share, and other people will be able to learn regardless of whether or not they agree. Like that's the thing.
yes.
We don't have to agree. Who says we have to agree? We're always trying to force people to agree. Well,
No,
why? We don't have to
no,
agree.
no. Yeah, no,
We
we
can all
definitely,
thrive and not agree. We
right.
can all be successful and not agree.
And you can't shame people into your perspective, which is what the whole world is seems to be trying to do right now. It's like that's not going to work. So even if you don't agree, if you start being like that, you're stupid, that's stupid, you're an idiot, you're that, like
Yep,
that is not ever going to influence anybody. You're just shutting them down.
yeah.
And so if you truly believe, right, and you have that certainty that your perspective here is powerful and important and you want to get it out to as many people as possible, that is the worst strategy you could possibly use.
Well, it's about ideas and perspectives and points of view, and opening to our humanity, because as a collective, we are all one, but yet we are all unique. And
Yeah,
that's what makes us special, because we
yeah,
each have
yeah,
that special thing that we bring to the world.
yeah,
So, the idea that people are different and have different thoughts and opinions about things is a part of that diversity and that, like, that beautiful tapestry.
Yeah.
Imagine if you had a tapestry on the wall, a big blanket, and it was made of thousands of pieces of yarn. Imagine if every single piece of yarn that was in that tapestry was exactly the same.
Yeah.
It would not have the vibrance and the depth and the texture that a tapestry woven with all different kinds of yarns would have.
Yeah.
It may still be beautiful in its own way, but I like richness. I like to explore
Yeah.
the richness of the world.
Me
And
too.
that's why we need to have different opinions. And so, yeah, so I will bring on people to talk about their lives that are very different from mine. And I'm always open to that. And then you can make a decision whether or not you align with it. That's a different story. And if we think of it that way, more about our own alignment with that other point of view, that okay, well, I align with this part of it, I don't align with this part of it. I'm always the person, when you talk about politics, I'm always the person who wants to talk about the actual issues. I don't want
Mhm.
to be making fun of anyone or saying mean things about someone, or just saying, "Oh, that person's a jerk," or "This person is,
Right.
idiot," or whatever. It's that's not productive, because
No.
as a society, we need to be able to talk about things that matter, like the actual issues.
This is why I wanted Marianne Williamson
Oh, yeah.
for president, which
Uh,
all I have so this I live in Trump country and they're just like, who?
well,
What?
she's really interesting.
She's
I've read A Course in
controversial too.
Miracles. Have you read A
Yeah.
Course in Miracles? Yeah.
Yes. And then Return to Love, her version,
Yep.
her take on
Yeah,
it.
and I mean, I'm all about that stuff. That's definitely because I think what you said is once you awaken to things, you cannot
You
be
can't.
asleep again, and
No.
that's part of it, because there's much more to it than the thick weeds that they try to throw in front of us to get us to not see what's beyond, like, in the forest. It's crazy, but podcasting itself gives you the chance to explore those things. And oh, we got a question. What kind of business should podcast? Any kind of business. I mean, let's say this just came to my mind. Even if you are a business of someone who, let's say you build pools, I've seen podcasts and social media accounts dedicated to showing beautiful pools, things that you can build in, around your pool and your landscaping and all that. I mean, there's so much to talk about with any
Yeah.
business, even if it's a brick and mortar.
Yeah.
Boutiques, women who own boutiques. I've seen podcasts about that, women who own these boutiques. And then the
My
thing is,
daughter's gonna start one for her business.
right,
Yeah.
that's so cool, because then what happens is you're gonna sell your clothing, you're gonna sell your landscape design, you're gonna sell your whatever you're selling, regardless of the business.
Well, it's the
Because
best way to stay top of mind and
that's
top
right.
of mind for the right things,
Yeah,
right?
and it
You know?
positions you as an expert. And
Yes.
then people can go to your podcast to listen more about that thing, that
Oh,
they're now buying. They can say, "Oh, okay, great. Now what do I need to know about this?"
yeah.
And yeah, so any business,
And
any
it's
business.
organic. I mean, like it's so easy. Like when I first started mine, I was like, wait, I'm on Spotify? What do you mean? How did I get on Spotify?
Yeah,
Like I
so
was
cool.
like mind blown. I was like, it didn't cost me anything. Like
Nope,
what?
it's totally
And
free.
yeah, and I forget who threw out the statistic, but as long as you go past 100 episodes, you're in the top. I think it's either 5 or 1%.
Oh, yeah, that's
Most
right.
people start and stop and don't do it.
Most
So
people stop.
yeah,
I
and so
think
I
it's
was
after the 19th episode is kind of a benchmark. If you can get past that, and then once you get to the 100, yes, you're in. You're in the top 5% automatically. And then, you can just go up from there. But it doesn't even matter so much. Like, I do look at my statistics, but I'm not focused on them primarily.
yeah,
Yeah, because
speaking
I
to
think
your
if you get
niche, not
wrapped
your
up in that,
audience. Yep,
yeah, you don't wanna get too wrapped up in the numbers. Like, I know someone who was obsessed with getting their podcast into, like, the top 1%.
I know who.
And they were talking about this, and it was really interesting to me, because the way to do it basically the bottom line was paying for advertising
Yeah.
and getting, and you can do things like buy listeners. Like you can do that. I'm not saying this person was doing that. I don't
No,
think they
no,
were.
no, 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 no.
But
I know. I
I'm
get it.
just saying that this goes on. And this goes back to what you
Yeah.
were saying about the playing these games, because that's part of it. There is a dark side to it, if you
But
want to call that a dark side.
I don't necessarily think it's a dark side. I think it's like, for me, thank God I didn't have hundreds of thousands of listeners yet. I wasn't ready. I wasn't, now I'm getting there, like where I'm in that space of uh fully empowered with my voice.
Yeah.
Um so if I had, I would have maybe alienated a lot of people.
Well, and also just be aware that when you look at other podcasts, first of all, you should never compare yourself. But if you are looking and you're saying, "Wow, I don't understand how they've got, 1 million downloads and I don't."
Right.
Well, there's other things going on behind the scenes that you may not know, and it may not be what it appears. Let's just say. So
Well,
that's why you just focus on
and what
you.
are what's your mission, what's your purpose,
Yeah,
right? And
yeah.
that's really more important. It's like having, like, right now I have like 11,000 followers on Instagram. It does nothing. Like, it doesn't really do anything for me, and unless I started to leverage that through marketing and this and that, because Instagram's going to do. So the bottom line is that if you're trying to use paid advertising as a shortcut to getting into mastery on the things you want to talk about, it's not going to work. But if you use your time, energy, and effort and space, and prioritize your time, my big thing, so that's not to say that you can't market and you can't spend time, but like right now I'm back to reprioritizing, back to basics. It's my voice, my message that matters, not how many reels I've done, not how many this or how many that.
Yeah.
And so having 11,000 followers now that I spent a lot of time, energy, and effort cultivating, and realizing it really doesn't do anything for me, is a big epiphany. And that class where she just talked so much about, you want to be speaking and not to your audience. Your audience, like, we average about 40 something people here live on Empower Hour, and then between all the different platforms and my Kajabi app. But the reach gets into the 10,000 because it's out there and people find it, and it's not all about the impact it's making today. That's much more powerful than my 11,000 Instagram followers, because the people that are tuning in afterwards is because they searched something related to the topic or something related to me, and they landed there because they were meant to. Does that make sense?
Definitely. What you just said about sticking to your mission, it's a very good idea to get yourself a mission statement, to think about your mission statement and to make that. We have another question. How do I get guests? Okay, you just ask people. You just ask people. I have gotten guests. When I first started, I thought about people I knew who were very interesting, who wanted to talk with me about things that I thought were interesting, and I started there, and then it magically happens that you will find more people who find out you're doing a podcast. They want to be guests, and then you can start to ask people. I ask people on Instagram. I send people messages on Instagram and they reply. And I've had amazing guests that way. I
Yeah,
just
you
had
have. Listen, I've seen her have people where she had 400 people live. I'm like, go, Mitzi, go.
Well, that's what happens because you get this guy that I just had on recently, Raghunath Kapo. He's such an interesting guy. He was I saw him on Rich Roll and Joe Rogan's podcast, and I thought, I'm going to ask him. I asked him and he said yes, and I interviewed the guy. And that's what you have to do. Don't be afraid to reach out to people. So this is the way you get guests. You just ask.
You think of them as the pretty girl, right? The pretty girl never gets the date just because nobody asked them. Just
nobody
ask.
asked her.
And
Just
it's
ask.
okay. And it's okay.
Right.
It's okay if they say no, because guess
a lot
what?
of people say no, but and a lot of people don't even answer me, but just as many people say yes. And it's those people that are meant to be on your show.
Agreed. I love it. I love it.
Yeah. It's so cool.
Let's see what else. I think here. Yeah, this is a good one.
Do you need to be live? No. I pre-record all of my podcast episodes with guests. Many times people are in different time zones, and that can be difficult to I've interviewed people that live in New Zealand. I'm in the US, and so that's a drastic difference in time zone there, and so it's just much easier. I think for me, I love what you're doing live here, and I love doing live things. At first I was very shy about being live, and now I'm embracing it. So I love that you're doing this. It's fantastic. But yeah, for me, I pre-record, because then also you want to plan. You don't want to be scrambling every week to put up an episode. You want to have episodes aired down the line and be able to record
Yeah.
ahead of time.
And
That's very
repurposing, and one of the things that I'm gonna do from now on is not only just replaying. I do replaying because I have a much bigger reach now than when I first started, and it's great.
Mhm.
But I also give a commentary at the beginning, like, since this aired, this is different, and my perspective has changed a little bit on this and that. Like, you can just go so far with it. The other thing is, when I started, I didn't have video, and that helps me tremendously, because then I didn't have the excuse. Now I don't care. Like, you guys, I literally rolled out of bed. I think I still have crusties. I started out. I'm exhausted.
Sleepers.
This is what cool hats are meant for, and I'm out here too often to always look perfect, and it's just part of who I am, and my brand is it's okay to not look perfect, but not having that video aspect made it so simple, and I had my microphone, and I love. Right now, you're probably wondering, how is she outside and she sounds so good? Because she has her external microphone on. And so it's not big, it's not heavy. There's so many different kinds. I have the kind that clips on, that works with my iPhone. I have my external, and you can then take it and travel and go. So there's no like, when I started exercising every single day, it was because I started doing things like running and yoga, where there's no excuse. You roll out the mat, you throw on your sneakers, and you go and you do. Podcasting can be very, very similar. You do not have to have all this to get started. Just get started.
Just get started. Just
Yeah.
get started. Just get started, and you're going to find that there's a lot of information online. You're going to need just some of the basics as well. You're going to need a place to host your podcast, and that can be done free through Spotify for podcasters. They have a free platform. There's also Buzzsprout. There's something called Podbean. There's Riverside. So once you start researching these hosting platforms, you'll find that there are many of them. But if you just want to get started for free, Spotify for podcasters, you can do it for free.
Yeah.
And then what you do is you hook up what's called your RSS feed, which you'll get once you put your podcast on there. And then you get it come out on Apple and Spotify and Google Play and all the different platforms where people listen to podcasts. And so it's all easy and free and available to anybody who wants to get into the world.
Yeah.
And anybody who wants to know more specifics, I'm happy to help. Just reach out and send me a message up. I'll definitely hook you up with more information, more specific information if you're interested.
So you have an event coming.
I do, yes. I have a big event coming up in Philadelphia on September 6th. It's called the Rich Thinking Conference, Unlocking the Wealth of Wisdom, and it's all about mindset and networking. And we have 7 speakers who are going to be at the event. They are
Coach Michael Burt.
Coach Michael Burt. We have Coach Michael Burt.
My
We have a guy called Brian Galke who talks about facial recognition techniques, which is so interesting. Like, he says, if your eyebrows are shaped a certain way,
That's NLP. Yeah.
Yes, like that.
Yeah.
And we have Amber Ibarra, who is an amazing woman. She's started out in construction, and she was a model, and she talks about remodeling you. She's really cool. L.A. Williams, who happens to be blind, and he calls himself the blind phone master. He talks about using your senses to be amazing at different things, sales and whatnot. And we also have Chris Patterson, who is an amazing coach who trained with Zig Ziglar, and he's been with Ed Milet and all kinds of other people. He's just amazing. He's coming out. And yeah, so we just have and me and Renee V and me, and we will also be speaking briefly, but the focus is on these really big personal development people that we have. And so it's going to be a lot of networking and a lot of inspiration and motivation, an amazing
I'll
day.
be there. I will
Yeah.
be there.
Yes, you better be there,
For
Jen.
anyone from New York who wants to go and wants to carpool, let's do it.
Definitely.
We're staying that night. We'll go early. I'll drive early in the morning, whoever wants to come with me.
Yeah, it's going to be an amazing thing. It's about being in the room, and like Jen and I both, this is how we've grown our businesses, by getting into the right rooms with the right people to network and make connections. And this is what you've got to do.
And
It
you know
makes
what?
a big
Just
difference.
to piggy tail on that, getting into that one VIP dinner where I met you, Craig Siegel's VIP dinner, and it's funny because two of the people that I connected weren't at that, but because like I made the connection with you and we instantly were like, let's do this. And Terry at that dinner, I think were the best connections I made that night. And then I met Jen Gray and Sal Rometta. And Sal Rometta is like a brother from another mother. Like have you met him?
Yeah. Yes,
Okay.
I love Sal.
Yeah. So it's like I feel a deep connection with you, a deep connection with Sal, a deep connection with Jen, a deep connection with Terry, all because of the podcast, right? It helped to solidify where you're not just out there networking, making the good connection, and then everybody ghosts, right? It just like fizzles out and feeds away. But getting people, making the connection, getting them onto your podcast or being on their podcast,
yeah,
solidifies. Now you really know each other.
Yeah. Through a conversation, the power of one conversation, the power of just a handshake with someone and making that touch point happen. And that's why I think getting into a live event, it like amplifies that. That's why we wanted to put on an event, because we wanted that to be an incubator and make that space for people to just activate their potential. So yes,
absolutely. And I know you're going to be teaching podcasting at some point. Have you started that yet?
I do. I have been doing that individually, in a like one-on-one mentoring. So I do podcast mentoring. Absolutely. You can access that by taking a look at my website, mitzicampbell.com, and you can sign up for a discovery call if you're interested in podcast mentoring. Yes. And I do have something new coming out. Can I talk about that?
Of course you can.
I haven't officially launched this yet, but I want to mention it here, and just do my very first shout out on the Empower Hour. Just a quick story. In the mornings, every morning, I get a text message from my dad, and my dad is 83. Every morning he sends a text message out to my sister and I, and then one to all of his grandchildren, and basically just says, "Good morning, have an amazing day. I love you, granddad, dad." And that message is so uplifting to everyone. We look for that. If he forgets to hit send, everyone's like, "Oh my God, what happened to granddad? I didn't get the text this morning." And it's a whole beautiful way of setting up the day. And so I want people to feel that empowerment from the get-go in the day. So instead of getting up and opening your phone and seeing bad news, you can open up your phone and see something amazing. So I created this morning text message program. It's called Your Positive Moment. And basically what it is a program that you signed up for, and every morning you receive a text message. And the text message has 4 parts. It has the greeting that tells you you're amazing and that you're loved. And then it has an affirmation for the day. And then it has something to keep in mind, something to think about during the day to direct your mind toward a positive direction. And then it has something that you can do that's super simple that will keep you in an elevated state of mind. Because, we all know there's research on positivity, there's research on connection to self and to others, and that's what it's based on. So it's called Your Positive Moment. It's at yourpositivemoment.com, and it should also be on my website, but I have to double check to see that that's up there. It's super, that. And you can start out with.
You don't have to go into the app, because I have apps that
it comes to your phone. It's not an app.
Yeah,
comes right to your phone, and it's you can start out with a 2-week free trial to see if it resonates with you. So if you go on your positive,
I've heard it's very, very minimal costs, which is great.
Very, very low cost. It starts out with a 2-week free trial, and then it's $3.99 a month.
I mean,
if
come
you
on.
want to do it.
Is it launched yet?
it launched, and it's kind of a soft launch. I haven't put it out there, so we're getting it out there in a soft launch right now. But I want to let your audience know to get in on it first thing.
How did they find it?
yourpositivemoment.com.
I love it.
yourpositivemoment.com. Yeah.
I love it. I
Yeah.
love it. I love it. And
Yeah,
if
I'm
you
super
start
excited.
having guests like do the things of the day, that would be fun. I would love to do
Oh, that would be fun. That
you
would,
guys-
well, you know, there's more that can come of it. And I'm always thinking, and you know, when you're talking about people thinking about doing their own podcast, there's always more to build. That's why the podcast is just the start of it. Like this is coming off of my podcast because I
Yeah.
found people need this. People need like to get up in the morning and not be worrying about shit. Stop worrying about shit first thing in the
I've
morning.
been saying that banks need to do that. Like, bank only texts you like you're under your threshold.
I know.
I'm like, why don't they be like, when I deposit a big fat check, congratulations, keep going.
Right. That's right. Banks should do that.
Yes.
Yes. It's amazing.
Although I'm grateful to not get those messages anymore, but I remember when I used to get them all the time. I'm like, what the?
No, we want positive messages, positive messaging. So now it's literally positive messaging coming to your phone.
I love
The
it.
literal positive messaging. I've created it. So yeah, so I want hundreds of thousands of people, if not millions of people, to be doing this. I want it to be like you're gonna wake up and say, oh, what's gonna say today? What am I gonna focus on today? And it's gonna give you something so that when you see that bad news, when you start worrying about politics, you look back at your text message for the day and say, I'm supposed to be thinking about this today. I'm supposed to be thinking about this positive thing that's gonna make me better and happier and more joyful and more loving and more generous and have more gratitude. So anyway, thank you for letting me.
You are a blessing, a joy, and I love you.
It's been so fun. I'm so awake now, Jen. Thank you. I love
we can
you.
go on and on and on and on and on, you and I. So if you just stumbled upon this, scan the QR code, go to this URL, and you'll get all the replays of Empower Hour. We've had some of the most amazing people here giving away their secrets to joy, freedom, success, abundance. Abundance. I can't even speak. Yeah, really important. And then also, you know, my time efficiency breakthrough audit. I truly believe everything we spoke about today, everything that you want to accomplish in your life, you have to start with creating the time and the space to be able to drown out the noise. And there's going to be a lot of noise in the next couple of months. And part of that is really understanding where you're spending your time, and you know that where you're spending your time really needs to align with your mission and your purpose, and that version of yourself you want to be, and the life that you truly desire, and to be able to build a life by design, as opposed to, listen, I spent like 50 years living a life by default. Again, no regrets, because I survived what most people would not survive. But had I had some of these tools while I was doing that, it would have been amazing. And again, there's no regret. It only motivates me and gives me clarity to knowing exactly what I do want in my life today. But without taking the time and space, that would not be possible. So I encourage you guys to take a chance on this. It's really, really powerful stuff. And
that sounds amazing, Jen. Sounds amazing.
All right, everyone, have an amazing weekend. Happy Friday. I feel energized too. I was so tired, and wow, it's the first time we even went over, because I could just talk to Mitzi for.
I know we need to keep going. We could do like a marathon.
Yes. All right, love you all. Have a great, great day.
Thank you. Bye.